Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Steven and Kori. I'm Steven and
I'm Kori, and we are getting it together first.
Getting it together first.
Together.
With yourself, right?
Yeah.
Then you can get it together.
He's still getting it together.
Right?
I'm almost
so,
there.
Folks, we are fresh off of a wonderful anniversary trip. You know, some of you that have been plugged into our podcast know that we have been married for 40 years. We've known each other for 42 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be hanging out with this sister.
And the first 6 months, I didn't even like him.
Yeah, I don't even know if I like her still. I mean, every now and then she makes me really upset. But you know what? Here's the reality. We're actually beyond a lot of that nonsense. And if there's anything that we want to share as we go forward with this podcast is get through all the junk, okay? Yeah. Because on the other side, there's some fun time.
It's great.
It is.
And then
fantastic.
You can look back at yourselves and go, did we really complain about that? Yeah. were we really that shallow? Yeah, we were.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have an exciting show. We are like so thrilled to actually be bringing you a phenomenal couple who actually are friends of ours we've known for multiple decades. They are a phenomenal couple. We're excited about bringing them to you. Mm-hmm. It is Keith and Sarah Davis.
Or they are. They are.
Keith and Sarah Davis. We are so excited to be able to introduce you.
Let me just say this. We had our children at the same time. So our oldest is 35, and that was the child that we were raising at the same time with them. So that's how long we've known them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, a little bit about them. I'm going to give you their bio. Keith and Sarah Davis are a dynamic couple who have been married for over 30 years. Keith is a former All-American football player from the University of Southern California and played for a short time for the New York Giants. Keith is an educational speaker who has traveled to over 65 countries around the globe. Brother, you get along, you get around. He encourages audiences from every walk of life that they can win. And God knows people truly need to understand that they can win. Thank you for that, Keith. Then Sarah also is a former All-American athlete and was a track sprinter at the University of Los Angeles. She too is a speaker and is a wellness transformational coach. Oh my gosh, don't we need that these days? She specializes in mental, physical, and spiritual detoxification systems. Wow. Allowing people to experience inner peace. Boy, don't we need that these days? Increased energy and high performance living. We got a lot going on here. This is exciting. Now they have I don't know how they had time to do this, but they have two adult sons, Josiah and Daniel, who are both highly creative. Can you imagine? Right? And they're highly creative individuals, and they are actually making an impact in the world of historical storytelling. You know what? The fruit always never falls too far from the tree. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Get It Together, our friends, Keith and Sarah Davis.
Woo!
Intro.
Welcome, you two.
Yes.
So good to be together with you.
Yes.
Together with everybody.
Well, thank you. Listen, we are going to pick their brains because if you noticed in their bio, they're both All-American. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like talk about 1%ers. So if they're excelling at that, they're excelling at everything that their hand touches because God has blessed them to do that.
Right.
So as All-American, their boys are probably All-American too. So they're the 1%ers. No pressure.
Oh yeah.
So as you guys have grown together, there's always a story that starts at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to tell us, first of all, how did you guys meet? And did you guys like each other when you met? Or did you guys?
Yeah, we're polar opposites and we still are.
So
it's not about us.
But we always say we're not bipolar. So anyway, how did you guys meet? And when did the, this is the one come along?
So we met in high school. I saw her, first of all, I was in 11th grade. She was in the 10th grade. I lived in a really rough part of Los Angeles, but I used a fake address to go to a really nice high school. And that being said, I saw this girl running on the track, and she was just so put together. It was just the glory of God running down, and it was just like an illumination moment. And I just said to myself, whoever marries her will be a lucky
Did the
person.
heavens open up and the angels?
Yeah, they opened in the
Is your
cloud
wife?
in the shape of this.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, I'm just having fun with you guys, but that is how we met in high school. Yeah.
And did
And
you
so-
approach her, or did she say, "Ooh,
Yeah,
who's that guy looking at
Oh,
me"?
no, she didn't like me, but I'll let her tell that part. Yeah.
Well, he was a very large football player. And, and I was like, I don't know, not so much. Because I, grew up with brothers who played ball and that kind of thing. So it's funny because I always said, oh, I'll never marry a football player, I never date a football player. So yeah, it wasn't love at first sight. It took a while. It took for him graduating. And he came back on campus one day, my senior year. And that's when I was like, oh, 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 we need to talk. We need to talk. Yeah. So it took a little while, but we remained friends during that time. And we were both athletes. We were both on the track team, all of that. So it was really good in high school. We had a great group of friends.
And so we went to college. For those who know California, I went to USC. She went to UCLA. They're only about 20 minutes apart. And we kind of kept in contact.
Hold on. So you're not dating, you're just friends and staying in contact?
We're just friends.
Friends.
I had this transformational moment in my life where I want to say transformational because there was a lot that happened, but long story short, I ended up giving my life to the Lord in a unique way. And what I mean by that is, most teenagers, it's kind of something maybe your parents will lead you into or you grew up in, but that wasn't the case. It was like God just gave me an unbelievable revelation of himself. And so I just grew into this, a unique kind of commitment to the Lord. So I wasn't really much into like chasing girls or partying or anything like that. So that being said, even when we were in college, our first date, well, she thought it was a date. I just invited every girl I met to church. And so, uh, so anyway,
Just quickly, was that part of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, or what kind? Or were you at somebody's
so
church, or
no,
what happened?
I mean, I was involved in that in college, and I was involved in that, throughout even, my athletic career and speaking career. But really, just in terms of me giving my life to the Lord, that just happened at a church that was right there in the heart of Los Angeles. And I just had this, I had it, I'm trying to think of the words that I could use because I didn't have an earthly father. So God became my Abba Father, my heavenly Father. And I literally every morning would say, "Good morning, Father." I would talk to God all the way to school. It was an hour ride on the bus, to God. So it was just this unique kind of connection that I had with the Lord. And that being said, I'm sharing that because even my relationship with her in college was more of it was friends, and I was always trying to encourage her and everyone I met in the Lord. And so then when we finally started dating, I was just very serious about, my life, my relationships and everything. I wasn't like a normal, like 19 or 20-year-old in terms of my thinking about relationships or anything like that.
You had a spiritual maturity about you.
Yeah.
He did. And it was so funny because I remember there was a point when we were just friends, when I was telling him we needed to be more than friends. And
Wait, you were telling him?
Yes,
Yeah,
I was telling him that. And he literally said to me, he said, Sarah, I've got football, I've got school, and I have to be about my father's business. And I was like, what? What is happening here? But it was really funny, but it's cute. We look back on it now in retrospect. But he literally said that. And I was like, that's what I want you to more. Yeah.
Sarah became the hunter.
The huntress.
Okay, so now you're in college and you go on this first date to church, which we encourage every young adult to do that.
Yes.
Our oldest daughter used to do that. You want to get to know my best friend?
Yeah.
Join me on Wednesday night. So that, and you know what, that's really revealing also as a young adult, isn't it, Keith, to say, okay, I'm going to take you to church and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I'm playing football on one of the top teams in the nation. So every single day I got a locker room full of teammates that are like trying to create unbelievable peer pressure on me, even my coaches, just because I wasn't sleeping around like, 99% of the team and everything like that. So I really did really based on the way I grew up and all of the issues with my mother and my father who passed away, all this, I wanted my relationship to be something that God blessed. And so it was just a different mindset about all of that, but it led to some problems. I know we'll move along in the podcast, but it did lead to some problems later in our marriage because of that mindset in terms of uh, you know, I must be about my father's business, but my father's business happens to be me taking care of my wife and my children and everything else. And so you got to learn, put things in priority and perspective. And so, as we moved along in life and obviously 34 years later in our marriage, I can see where even though I was mature spiritually in some ways, I was immature in other ways because not having the model of what a family should be or what a father should do or husband and wife, how they should function. Because I never even seen a functioning family.
Right.
No one in my family had it. And so here I am, years later trying to figure out being a husband, being a father, taking care of my father's business and my own business, my own family. So, it's an interesting journey, as you said, when you started the show, just looking back saying, wow, did I really do that? Was I really like that? So it's really interesting.
Well, it would be interesting to understand within the context of you accepting Christ as your savior and being focused, and then you and Sarah meeting. I'm curious, Sarah, where were you from a spiritual standpoint? Now, were you raised in the church? Did this resonate with you, or kind of where were you in the spectrum?
So what was interesting is I was raised in the church. My mother was Methodist, so we went to the Methodist church quite a bit. And actually, when Keith invited me to church, it wasn't anything that was unfamiliar to me, but I had at that point never received Christ as my savior. So literally, the day that I went was the day that I got saved.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a really powerful and pivotal moment because the year prior to that, I had been in a car accident and literally fell out of the top of my car. It was a convertible into oncoming traffic on a 2-lane highway in a canyon, right? So I could have easily gone, 500 feet down into the Malibu Canyon, but didn't. And I woke up in the hospital. But I remember going down to the altar that day, and the Lord said to me, I literally heard the voice of God say to me, I saved your life for a reason.
Wow.
And so it has been a glorious journey ever since. That was the day that Mr. Davis invited me to church that I got saved.
I'm not advocating to all my young people missionary dating, but I will, because I know a lot of women just they know that person he looks so fine. I'm gonna get them saved and everything will be right. No, I'm not advocating that.
Dating. Okay, so we're gonna move along. So now you guys are dating, and you date through college, and now you're finished school. And what are we gonna do? Did you get married during college, or did you get married outside of college after finishing school?
Yeah, so we basically dated right around the end of our college career, and so I had signed with the Giants. I was only there for a little bit, and so then when I came back to LA, that's when the spirituality was still there, but her beauty was kind of overwhelming my spirituality.
Well, she is beautiful.
Yes,
So-
absolutely.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
call it like it is, baby.
Yeah.
And so then I let her know my intentions that I really wanted to get with her, so we really started dating seriously, and then probably a year after that, we got married.
Yeah.
We got married. I guess back then it wasn't considered too young, but looking back now, we were young. We're like 24 years old,
I was 23.
23,
Mhm.
24.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and then, shortly after that, we met these incredible people named Steven and Kori. they, they, they revolutionized our lives.
Oh, okay, skip that.
Oh,
Well,
that's so
the
that's so
funny
wild.
So you chose to move from California to Texas.
yeah,
Yeah.
and part of our dating piece too is I was still in school my last year as I was engaged, and he was um off working and traveling. And so really I think the expediting of the marriage was, rather than, like our parents said, kind of having stock in AT&T, being on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
You're like, we could be together forever.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting married. So that really kind of pushed things, I think, along pretty fast. Even though we were friends,
Yeah.
it was kind of like, well, I never see you.
Yeah. So after I got released from the Giants, I started working with a group of athletes that spoke literally all over the globe, and they were based in Texas, and we were originally in California. So this group was based in Dallas, and so I ended up moving here, and I found a nice little place, and then I was dating Sarah seriously, and so anyway, yeah, we ended up getting married, and the next thing we knew, after our marriage happened, all of a sudden, like 3 months later, I don't know how it happened, but she ended up pregnant, and that was like,
It was probably because you've been praying over so much. It's prayer, the power of prayer.
Oh man.
Prayer.
so yeah. So next thing you know, we were young, away from our families here, and she's pregnant with a baby, and life just began to change for us.
You
So,
can't even imagine, more than likely, how often a similar story is
Mhm.
told by multiple couples.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is so wild.
And for you couples out there who say, "Oh my gosh, that sounds like us. We don't have family around, and we're going to have this baby, our first child. How are we going to do it?" It will work,
It will work,
because there will come a time where God will align people in your lives, if you're searching, that will be a support system for you. And have no fear. You're hearing a story, and you've heard our story, that this is a reality, especially nowadays where most people are so transient.
Yeah, right.
So just be aware that never feel like I can't go anywhere because I have to be around my family if I'm going to raise a family.
Exactly.
You can always visit your family. You're going to have trials, but sometimes it could be beneficial, right?
Exactly.
Not to be around your family.
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to grow up.
Yeah,
Essentially.
yeah.
So maybe we should start to transition to that, because
So
all
wait
of
a
a
minute.
sudden,
What I want to talk about is the communication. So we
Yeah.
have, you guys remember, we talk about communication, finances, and intimacy. I want to talk about the spiritual intimacy
Yeah,
that
that's
was
good.
going on in your relationship, which is beautiful. People think of intimacy as sex or something physical. It's also spiritual.
Yeah.
And if you guys recall, the last couple we had on, they spoke about their spiritual intimacy, and it's a beautiful thing because everything happens in the spirit before it happens in the natural.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So think about how the intimacy that Keith had with his Holy Father,
Mhm.
Abba Father, and the fact that he shared coming to church. Sarah already had an intimacy that was revealed because she went down that aisle and accepted Christ. That's so, for you people out there that don't understand that, that's the deepest intimacy that you can have.
And on the other side of the spectrum, though, and we have to address this piece too. Sometimes people are so spiritually minded, they're no
Mhm.
earthly good,
Right.
and it
Yeah.
creates that strength of spirituality. Actually, unfortunately, and many times becomes a negative driver in the
Or it
relationship.
becomes a weapon
Yes,
that you don't even
absolutely.
realize you're using. Yeah.
Right.
and I think
So the communication. So you guys learned how to communicate because you were on AT&T, using the phone services. And fortunately, you listened to your parents saying, "What are you doing? Just get married." Just
yes, but I think the spiritual intimacy part is a positive and a negative for us. So let me explain briefly. So I was very much intimate in my relationship with God, and I was sharing that with her. I mean, we actually I remember, we read a book together called Sex, Communication, and Money by
Oh
Dr.
yeah, great book.
We read some other books together. We would share, we'd pray together. We'd do all of these different things. And at the time, again, I wasn't playing football anymore, but I was speaking and traveling all over the globe. So when we got together, we did those things.
Mhm.
But also, I've come from a family where no one pretty much has been married for any amount of time. I have a lot of addiction in my family. There's a lot of drug abuse, a lot of alcohol abuse, a lot of domestic violence. My father sold drugs, committed suicide. My mother struggled with alcoholism, with drugs, extremely abusive relationships. I went to 19 different schools before I was 15 years old.
Before you were 15?
Yeah, before I was 15, I changed schools about 19 different times. So I'm sharing this just brief background to
Sure.
go to this intimacy part. So now we get married. And I've never seen a real functioning relationship or family. So I began to do what I normally did when I was single, which was go into my room or closet and close the door and pray, which made her furious. Like,
Yeah.
why would you do that? You've been gone for a week. Now you're going to go. And it was like a long period of time, like an hour, 2 hours, it was my normal habit. But as we were dating, I was sharing this with her because when you date, you only just together for so many hours out of the day, and then you go home and she go home. She goes home, and then all of a sudden now we're living together, and I still have this time that I set apart, but it was a I'm
It
trying
was
to
a barrier for
it was a
intimacy.
barrier because
Right. Yeah.
she was like, I'm supposed to be a part of that, but I don't know. I've never seen my mother pray with anybody. I've never
Right.
seen, definitely not my mother's abusive boyfriend person. I didn't know you're supposed to like let her in on that time as well. It was really interesting when I think about it now. You're 24, 25 years old and you're trying to grow and do all of these things that you think are right, yet you're not putting the pieces together. And this is, I think, in terms of modeling, I guess at the age we are, and those who are listening who are a little bit more mature in terms of modeling to those that are either in our families or in our circle of what real kind of relationship and connection should be, or
This is so good. This
very
is so good.
you know what I mean? I think it's very important. So
Oh,
anyway, it was working for us and against us at the same time. As
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
This is so crucial.
I'm
so
writing what
crucial.
you're saying here, and what I see is that that also has to do with communication, because
yes,
you are communicating more with God spiritually than you are with your wife, who God placed in your life to have that replacement. A lot of times we forget that it's okay to replace God in certain areas of your life with your spouse, because it's a trinity, father, husband, wife, and you got to make room for her,
yeah,
and not even realizing that it's a painful thing to see as a wife to say, hello, you're shutting me out.
Right.
And
Yeah.
meanwhile, you men out there, or you women out there, whoever is partaking in that, are probably thinking, I'm becoming a better person for you.
Right.
It's like, but I don't know that. I'm not getting to know that person. So yeah, sometimes we can be so spiritually minded, we're no earthly good in
So I'm
certain areas,
curious. I'm curious though, Sarah, when Keith would do that, do you recall what your emotional state was, or what your actual true feelings were at that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of abandonment, which is really interesting when we start talking about, how your past and your childhood, informs your present, right? So it was very hard because he was traveling 4 to 5 days a week, so he would only be home 2 days. And so those 2 days, of course, he would come home fatigued from traveling from different time zones. Then it would be, we go to church. He would go into his room and he would pray for his 2 or 3 hours. And there was just very little time. And I'm a new mother,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So he's walking through the door and I'm almost even wanting to hand him, our son. So it was feelings of abandonment, really. I mean, he was physically there, but he wasn't there. And so I think that was really a difficult space for me, on top of the fact that I had been moved away from my family, our family. So everything in that first year to 2 years was very unfamiliar, and really had to work on building community. And that's
Yeah.
why I've always been so grateful to you and Kori, because you were like a breath of fresh air and knowledge, and the big sister that I don't have here to show me what it is to be a mom, and my own mom or his mother to be there for support. Building community when you're first married is so important when you're not away from your family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, this is so incredibly astonishing, because we're living in a time where you have people like Jada and Will who, fake all kinds of different things. This is not fake. The story that is being explained here is absolutely straight up stone cold real. And you're talking about two incredible, actually really good people.
All American.
All American, right? But make no
They're the
mistake.
1%ers, guys.
Exactly. But the other piece of this is there's something broader at play here, and that is we have an adversary, we have an enemy whose number one job is to destroy the family unit. And at first, you have to get the couple, you have to destroy the marriage, because if you get the marriage, the children, and everything else becomes collateral damage. So what's exciting, though, is this was a dream. This was a dream that came true for them, getting together. Now they're together. The most exciting thing that should be going on is all this happiness and joy. And we're seeing what's unfolding here. The reality is that many of us go through is there's a struggle.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a struggle. Let's talk about that, how you guys begin to understand, oh my gosh, this is what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We always tell people, they're like, what is your best marriage advice? And we were like, well, we can tell you exactly what not to do the first 5 years.
That's good.
Wow. Because we felt like we did everything wrong. And it was just so difficult that, what do you do? And you have this union, and so many marriages don't even make it past what I think the third year now, somewhere between 3 and 5 years. And those are really the most difficult and foundational time in your marriage. So many times people would say, as we were going through struggles later in our relationship, just remember back, when you guys were first dating and how great it was, and go back to that. And I was like, wait a minute,
When was that?
When was that? Because he was always traveling. There was never that foundation set. We were never together, even when we got married, and spiritually we were together, but we weren't together. Right. So, we really had several years where we had to work through a lot.
And I think, speaking from experience now, you having 40 years of marriage and us 34, I think the word, not even just from a spiritual point of view, but just the word grace is a huge word. Just to give the person that you're with grace, forgiveness from the heart. I never forget a man talked about anger and bitterness, and he used a term, he called it aged anger. Anger that's aged, AGED, aged anger, where you've let it build up over years, and it creates a fossil of bitterness. And so I think that just having grace, when you look back now, and even, obviously, no matter how long you've been married, there are issues that come up, but just being graceful. So in the middle of all of my immaturity in terms of family and growth as a father, God gave me so much grace to help me, be a father to my sons, and a husband to my wife, even though there were so many things I didn't know and I was learning as I went.
Right.
I think his grace was sufficient. And then just for me to be, looking back now, just having a grace towards my wife and not holding things against her because of, my anger or my bitterness. I think that's something that is huge when we talk about sex, communication, money, because there was a lot of money issues as well that kind of fueled some of this. And that goes a little bit from growing up and then me wanting everything to be in order. I wanting my children to have what I never had. And, me being in a financial position that I've never grown up in. I'm the first one in my family to ever have like a legitimate house. I never had a yard. I lived in these rough raggedy inner city apartments my entire life. And now, you know, I have a home and I have this and that. And so it was just like this mindset towards my money that would almost overtake me. And I had to be graceful towards my wife so that there wouldn't be any friction in there, you know. And now I look back on it, it was a lot of things built up in my heart that, you know, caused a lot of the friction in our communication and our money, you know, and everything else. So anyway.
Let's talk about that, the finance, because you're coming into a season in your life that you've never experienced before with the finances that you have. And how did you know how to manage that? Was that something that Sarah could help you along with, or because did you have family members pulling on you saying, no, did you have family members pulling on you? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is good.
Look at him rubbing his face. Okay,
So
get that on camera.
right. Keith and I grew up on completely separate sides of the track. All right. So while he did grow up in the inner city, I grew up in Malibu. And, you
For
know,
those of you across the world, Malibu is money.
Ritzy.
Money.
yeah.
On the coast, beautiful ocean.
Yeah. And so our lifestyles were completely different. Our expectations were completely different. And even though when we were younger, my parents split up, and of course he grew up as a single mom with a single mom. And so we had, when we came together, really decided, okay, one of the things that we don't want to do is have our kids have the kind of experience that we had. And so, you know, I'll stay at home and raise the boys. And so with that,
Bravo, by the way.
Bravo.
problem right away.
Stay-at-home mom. Yes,
Yeah.
CEO of the house.
Yeah. So it was
excuse me,
great in
CO.
that respect,
Mhm.
but because of where he came up from and because of my spending habits, that created a huge conundrum between the two of us. Because I was at home and I wanted things. I wanted, you know, I wanted furniture. I wanted things for my child. I wanted, you know, and really
What's wrong with that?
at that point was young and didn't have the perspective and the education around finance. I just didn't have it, you know, because I came straight out of my dad's house, living with my parents. So it wasn't, I spent a year and a half living with a girlfriend paying rent. But outside of that, it wasn't like I was a really budgeted person. So that in itself, of course, drove him crazy because he was like, where's all my money going?
Great.
This is so good,
Hold on.
guys.
He
This is
leaves
so
for
good.
4 days and he comes back broke.
Which makes him want to get out there even more, by the way.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to go back out.
This is beautiful,
It
folks.
is.
This is incredible.
So yeah. So it was a perfect storm.
Perfect
Quite the
storm,
perfect
So
storm.
how did you work through that where you figured out, okay, did you put a budget together so that you had spending money, or did you decide, okay, I'm just gonna Keith takes over all the budget, because Steven took over the budget for 25 years so I could figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I basically, in a way, and I think, you know, again, looking back on it now, so we were able to put our kids through like phenomenal education and private universities and all of these different things. But again, some things that were foresight back then, which meant a little bit of maturity, worked for me and against me. So I could see that way back, even when I was 26, 27, of having opportunities for my children and all of these different things. And so I was like trying to plan all of this along, but she wasn't going along with the plan. And it was causing me to go crazy because I'm thinking, what is going on here? And so I think, I think just over time, and I think it would be good to remember your statement that you said in the beginning. Like, did we really fight over that? Like, was it really, did it really mean all of that? So was it worth all of that anger and stress and anguish?
Sure.
Not really, you know what I mean? And I just kind of began to ease up about all of it. and let God work it out. Not that I became foolish or just spending allowing us to spend all of our money, but I just think sometimes you just have to, I'd rather have peace than anything else. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is a balance.
That's right.
It's a balance. Everything's there's a availability of, yes, well, we can spend this, but do we really want to, or do we really need to?
Yeah.
Or, hey, let's save for this,
That's
or
right.
let's
That's right.
invest in this, because it's called life. You have to enjoy life.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can see though how if you add financial issues to the other communication issues, the abandonment issues, when you superimpose this issue of money on all of that, it is so incredibly combustible. I mean, you light a match, this thing's just going to explode. Right? You know, this is so good, and I'm being prompted actually by the Holy Spirit that we need to continue this, and we'll probably cut this into 2 shows. We'll probably have session A and then session B, because there's another really important piece that we'd love to have you guys speak to, and that's family. That's how does this energy affect your kids, and sharing more stories like Keith and Sarah Davis, getting it together.
Together.
Take care, guys.
All right. See you.